Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, viewers. I'm Matthias Ofiku, news editor of the Namibian Sun newspaper. Let's have a look at today's headlines. We're joined in studio by the leader of the All People's Party, Mr. Ignatius Shixwameni, not a stranger to Namibian politics. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah.
Let's get the ball rolling. I think one of the key topics we should touch on today is the election challenge in Dongalinene, Kavango East. Can you just give us an update of where the process is at the moment?
Well, currently the process is registered with the court. On the 19th of March, we'll have the final court hearing. We filed an application, of course, to have a recount of the results of the Ndongalinena constituency. And because there were certain irregularities that our party agents picked up and all this kind of thing. So when we filed it with the court, as usual, the motion was put to the court, and the various participants in the elections were asked whether they want to object to the recounting or not. No one of them, not SWAPO, not the candidate, not the three other parties that participated in the elections, actually objected to it. So what we are now standing for is that on the 19th of March, the court would then have to give an order, both in terms of costs, but also in terms of when must the Electoral Commission actually have that recount, the date when they will have that recount. That's what you are waiting for.
Okay. So what necessitated this court process?
It was necessitated because actually our local party agents, including the Secretary General, did object right at the coalition center for the results in Dongalinena. They were not allowed, it could not stand. They were told it must be sent down to Rundu, to the top coordinator of the elections that time, that he is the only person that can express himself. Yeah. He also objected and referred it back to Dongalinena. And by that time, the results, every documentations have been sent to Rundu, and they were preparing to send them to Wintu. So that's what actually prompted us to appeal to contact a lawyer so that we can appeal that, no, we have observed that there were irregularities in the counting and the tallying of the votes. So the lawyers took it up. We feel that we have a case, because what happened is to actually look at some of the recounting things where the person crossed against the law, and they dismissed them as spoiled ballots. But then from our party agents, those spoiled ballots, there were 57, about 44 of the spoiled ballots were recorded actually for our candidate. So we felt that since the SWAPO candidate only won with 12 votes, but the spoiled ballots were so many, and our agents said that no, those spoiled ballots were actually for our candidate. We feel that the result can be overturned so that our candidate is actually the elected councillor for that constituency.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Another issue that I'd like us to speak on is the issue of the representation of political parties across the spectrum of Namibia. I'm sure you've heard in the past talks that APP is a regional party and so on. We know that that area of the country is also your stronghold. What are some of the mechanisms the party is looking at, perhaps, to spread its wings across the country?
No, actually, when you look at it properly, SWAPO used it right from the time that we founded. SWAPO used it as that we are a tribal party. They actually initially said that it's a family party. But when we participated in our first election, that was at the first time, we won votes across the country and all this kind of thing. So they had no way to justify that it was a family party or a party for Utokota or the Sambi people alone and all this kind of thing. So we've been trying to build ourselves throughout the country, because when the party was actually founded initially, and that's the truth, is why it's called the All People's Party. Everyone from any ethnic group, from any tribe, can actually join the party, as long as they agree on the objectives, the mission that we have set ourselves, that Namibia have started disintegrating into tribalism, into ethnicity, and all this kind of thing. That's why we called the party the All People's Party. We thought, and that's still our mission, that the All People's Party can still accommodate everyone, every Namibian. Yeah. We can build a party. It's not like SWAPO now that's destroying our country, because actually SWAPO have destroyed our country. They've cultivated tribalism, they've cultivated ethnicity and all this kind of thing.
But you remember you're coming from there, right?
Yes, I come from there. But that's why I resigned, because I saw it in my resignation letter. I'm sure you have seen it. In my resignation letter, I said, there's political cannibalism taking place. There's tribalism, growing tribalism, there's ethnicity and all this kind of thing. That is more than 20 years ago. And that's exactly what's happening. You look at the last year's election results, what do it reflect? It's actually tribalism at growth. The LPM has taken the South, mostly, majority. Yeah. It's Nama speaking. The ones that voted probably for SWAPO and the IPC there would most likely be Kavangos and Vambos. You look at what was formerly Herero and West in the apartheid colonialism, and the Kaoko land, the DTA, Nudo, have taken over those areas. So you look further down, that actually we are back to tribalism and ethnicity as it was in the 1989 elections. Yeah. Because SWAPO in 89 lost the whole South, lost the whole Omaheke, lost the whole center apart from Windhoek, lost the whole Damaraland and all this kind of thing. And the UDF have reclaimed Damaraland and all this kind of thing. So we were only in 89. SWAPO could only win because of this position of the Kavangos and the Vambos. I actually keep on joking about it. Say, it's probably now the politics have become returned to Ovambo Kavango Church and all this kind of thing. We are not a tribal party. When you look at our results, actually we get even less votes in Kavango than we get in Ovamboland, than we get in other regions and all this kind of thing. Of course, some of them that votes, of course, are also Kavango-speaking people and Vambo-speaking people. But we cannot say that the majority of the votes that we get comes from the Kavango. That one, you can check the statistics. The first election, this is our second election, that can be disapproved, that we are actually just a Kavango party.
But in terms of demographics amongst your leadership, how is the representation? Does it paint the picture that you are telling here now, that it's really an all people's party?
Yes, it does. It does do it. I, of course, I'm the founding president. I'm from Kavango. I will not deny it. I come from Tokota. Sometimes they say it's a Tokota party and all this kind of thing. But I'm proud to have been born there. I had no choice. You don't choose where you get born and all this kind of thing. Our vice president, from the start, we have had two Vambos. The chairperson is from Caprivi. The deputy secretary, what do you call it, the secretary general, is from Ovambo. the Deputy Treasurer General is from Rehoboth, a bastard. That's the top 8. The Secretary General, of course, is also from Kavango.
From Mutokota.
No, yes, from Mutokota, of course. I admit that. But those are votes that are expressed at Congress. We have had democratic congresses right from the foundation of the party itself. We have had, if you look at all the parties, apart from SWAPO now having its 5th Congress, we, a young party of less than 10 years, less than 12 years, we have had 3 Congresses. We stick to our constitution, we do what needs to be done and all this kind of thing. You ask all these parties that are now claiming themselves, the LPM, when did they have their Congress?
Well, they were just formed recently.
Yes, but they must have a Congress. In order to have a leadership properly elected, they must have a Congress. You look at several other parties, NEF, you look at several other parties that are new. They have not had congresses and all this kind of thing. But we had committed ourselves because when some of us came out of SWAPO, we felt that democracy was not being properly exercised in that party, and that there was favoritism that was going on in that party. Our first political program and constitution said one simple thing. We want to make sure that we don't land up in this SWAPO dictatorship that we came in, because we realized that it is who you are and how you progress in SWAPO party. So we said, and we swore to ourselves, we shall not do that. And we shall set term limitations in our constitution that nobody who is an elected official in the party can serve more than 3 terms in the same position.
That's 15 years.
Yeah, that's 15 years in the same position. You cannot serve. You can move sideways, you can remain in the Central Committee, but you cannot be president for 3 terms.
So this is your last
or Secretary General. This is my last term.
So back to tribalism.
Yeah.
The proliferation thereof. How much blame should you as a politician and your fellow politicians from other political movements take? You said that the country is back where it was in '89 in terms of political votes and tribal votes. Politicians, we see how communities integrate with each other. There's no issues of tribalism and so on. But as soon as it comes to politics, the tribalism monster surfaces. How much of that blame should you as politicians carry in this regard?
Of course, politicians must carry the blame, in particular those ones that are in government. The SWAPO politicians should be able to carry the blame, because we say that we are going to build a one Namibia, one nation. But now they've evolved favoritism. I can tell you, probably it's my guesswork and my own analysis, that why the South had voted the way that they voted is because they understand the message of that the land was deprived from them. So they want the land back. So that's an issue that is at the hearts of the majority of the Nama and Damana speaking people. The same thing, the same issue with the Herero speaking people. That is at their heart. They talk about it every day and all this kind of thing. What does SWAPO does? SWAPO promotes jobs for comrades. But who are the comrades? The comrades are actually from one region. If you look at the ministries, you look at everything that you look at, 80% of the ministries, 80% of the ambassadors are only from one ethnic group. People are seeing these things. They are seeing these things. But SWAPO denies it. But people are seeing it that no, it cannot happen that 80% of the senior positions in government goes to one ethnic group. So those things are calculated, deliberated, all this kind of thing. Now you include the jobs for comrade, the jobs for comrade. It is antagonizing our society because there's no way that you can justify that jobs must go only to people belonging to a certain political party.
Let me just interject there. When we spoke of your party's leadership earlier on, you said that during Congress people vote, and how people vote you don't have control over them. So why is this one an issue now?
No, it's an issue because it's actually strengthening tribalism and ethnicity. Whether we like it or not, we might end up regretting it 5-10 years from now, because it can easily trigger a civil and ethnic war in this country. Do we accept it? No, we must not accept it. We must all day and night talk against ethnicity. The practice of only choosing people because they are only from your tribe or they are only from your ethnic group. All political leaders must talk about it, whether they are from LPM, whether they are from PDM, whether they are from SWAPO. We actually need to denounce it. We need probably a national, what do you call it, a national convention where we interrogate the issue of what nation are we building? What nation are we preparing our children to be in? Because sometimes my kids used to ask me when they were primary school and secondary school, say, but you fought for Namibia. Why do you deal with whites? Why don't you just take them out? So you cannot take them out. That's a national issue that we must interrogate. That's a national issue that we must address and resolve. Yeah.
Well, you want this to be addressed in that manner, but clearly it's benefiting the political class.
What political class?
Those who are benefiting from it. If my party receives tribal votes, how do I then go against that and speak against that? Like you said now, the people in the south, the way they voted, or how, say, in the areas where UDF reclaimed and so on, how people voted. So it's clearly benefiting a certain segment of the society.
It's benefiting the political elite. But the danger is that this political elite that's being benefited are just a couple of few individuals. What if, let's say, in Kietmans, sometime as the LPM was formed, there was this fight between the Shwambo-speaking people and Nama-speaking people. If we don't denounce that as politicians, whether it's leader from the LPM, whether it's leader from APP and all this kind of thing, that thing would become soon to be justified that it's actually right to fight for your tribe and your ethnic group. Now, where does it take us? The political elite, unfortunately, they are eating. They are eating, they are benefiting, they are having salaries, they have benefits, they have everything and all this kind of thing.
You are part of the elite.
Yes, but I'm a revolutionary. I'm a revolutionary. I don't do that. You can follow my speeches, all my speeches at rallies. I condemn this thing that we cannot go that way. People in the Kavango have been asking that why don't we officially make the party a Kavango party? I've told many people that are in the party that no, I cannot do that. Because the background from which I come from, as a young revolutionary, as an internationalist, and as a nationalist patriot, I cannot fall back on the Sambio-speaking people. No, I cannot do that. That's my principle, that's my ideological and political belief. I've been challenging, some of them have been saying, no, if you want to make the party from what it started as an all people's party, you want to make it now a Kavango party and all this kind of thing, I would be retiring peacefully and hand it to those ones that will be voted for in Congress, who would be able to say that, no, this is only a party for Kavango people. It's no longer an all people's party.
Let's speak about governance in the country in general. Opposition parties have a crucial role to play in that regard. We've seen a lot of anger and outrage from the side of the public in terms of how public resources are being managed. What is your view on that and what are you doing about it?
One, in terms of governance, our governance actually typically is called democratic, but in reality, it's not. Because there's bulldozing politics that's going on and all this kind of thing. The people have got the right to be outraged. Because every day that you buy a newspaper, every day there is corruption. Corruption this, corruption that. And the people that are implicated are actually people from the same circle, political circle and all this kind of thing. So people have got the right to be open. We have challenged it and said it that if government was serious and if the Anti-Corruption Commission was serious, why don't we establish a judicial commission of inquiry to look at lifestyle audits of most of the public servants, starting from the president, the ministers, the executive directors in government, the deputy executive directors in government, and some other officials, because we are not doing that. So this corruption is there. It's taken for granted that no, corruption now has become normal. Because whatever newspaper that you open every day actually is just full of corruption. And people have got reason to be angry about it. People have got reason to actually stand up and fight corruption. But we are also not standing up. We are not standing up. The young people, I challenge the young people, the youth. We stood up to fight for independence. They must stand up and say no to corruption. They must stand up and say no to this abuse and this maladministration, the abuse of power and all this kind of thing. They should find their way of standing up, because each generation must find its way and purpose of solving the problems of the country.
Well, we know that we are a country governed by the rule of law. You are a lawmaker. Do you think the manner in which our country is governed right now is the ground fertile for the activism you are speaking about when you say young people should get up?
Yeah, no, it's fertile. The political ground is always fertile, whether we like it or not. It's always fertile. It depends on what the message is, and depends on who drives it and how it's driven. The one thing that I would not want is that the young people stand up and again revert to tribal politics and ethnic politics. If the young people were to focus and say, look, we are Namibians. We want a better Namibia. We want a justified, a just Namibia. We want a peaceful Namibia. We want a corrupt-free Namibia. That message might find solace in many of the young people. So the young people, they are the ones that are unemployed. The majority of the young people are unemployed. The majority of the young people are living in the cambashes and all this kind of thing. Why can we not find an agenda that says enough is enough? Not only from the young people, but also for the people, the poor people, the unemployed people, the underemployed people, and all this kind of thing. There is reason enough to say no to corruption. This is the end of it.
So what about those who have been elected or placed in positions of influence to pull up those who are downtrodden and, well...
Yes, no, they can. I'm not saying that the old politicians, some of the old politicians are just politicians to eat. But some of us, our aim has always been from the time that I was young, is to pick up people and make Namibia a better place to live in. Make Namibia a place of justice, make Namibia a place that is well governed, and for us to move forward towards prosperity and success for everybody.
Okay. You started the student movement. You have that background. Well, what do you make of the current situation in the country as far as student movements are concerned? You see there are several of them now.
Yeah, there are several of them. I still, having been President and Secretary General of NANSO, of course, I would want NANSO to really stand up for the students. There are several student movements that have been established. I know their backgrounds also, because we had the same thing, even when we had NANSO. We had the same thing. You had NACOS, you had whatever established by the former DTA and the former other parties and all this kind of thing. Diversity is good, but they need to coordinate. It's just like with the trade unions. If you don't coordinate, you cannot win a case. So they must be able to find coordinators instead of fighting each other. I mean, they stay at the same university campus. They stay at the same whatever college and all this kind of thing. Why can they not stand up and say, guys, despite our ideological and political differences, why don't we unite on issues like bursaries, scholarship, funding of universities and all this kind of thing, because we all experience the same problem at the universities. So I still look forward that the student movements, there are 3 of them now, that they will be able to find a way of actually cooperating. I don't say dissolve, cooperating and working to the benefit of all students in the country and also students internationally, because our students are suffering, those ones that are abroad. They are suffering. They are being hurt by the same Ministry of Higher Education here in this country, who doesn't take care of their interests and all this kind of thing. So where is NANS? Where is NAS? Where are the other student organizations to talk to their international friends and say, how do we solve these problems that have become now sort of like, it's habitual. Students, they don't get their stipends on time. Like if you take the students that are in Cuba, you take the students that are in Russia, you take the students that are in China and all this kind of thing. They are experiencing trouble because no one knows why NASFAF cannot pay people on time. No one knows why everybody cannot be provided with a loan, a student loan. I was asking actually somebody at NASFAF that these are student loans. Say yes, correct. Why can you not give it to people? Because they are going to repay it at the end of the day. So why do you limit these things and all this kind of thing? Because it's a loan that's going to be repaid. And as long as the person has signed a contract and he comes and gets employment, he should be able to get a loan so that he can be able to repay it. But the student movements are not even united on that very small issue of how do we solve this thing with NASFAF and the Ministry of Higher Education and the universities.
Just lastly, the politics around these student movements have been a concern to many. How should that be managed in terms of the influence in those movements?
Well, you know, sometimes you need to go to people that have been there, people that were in the youth league, people that were in the student movement. There's no dialogue between the old generation and the new generation. And just to say, why must we have a vibrant and a strong student movement to represent us? And the student movement should be apolitical in the first instance. They should not really consider the issues of, okay, I'm a member of the SWAPO Youth League, I'm a member of the PDM Youth League, I'm a member of the APP Youth League and all this kind of thing. But to work on commonalities of what is affecting people, whether it's in the hostels, whether it's scholarships, whether it's whatever that's there, they should be able to find commonalities. All that I want to do, and I've said this to nuns of people, engage the other people. Don't be like, because now they are only seen like they are just swappers, trying to also find steps of how to evolve politically and all this kind of thing. I've been saying to some of them, no, don't do this thing. That era was our era. It's past. We are in a new Namibia, a modern, non-racial Namibia, and all this kind of thing. Find one another common ground. You can be active in your political parties, but in the student movement, you should be able to accommodate. Even in the trade union, you should be able to accommodate each and every one and move ahead for the cause of the workers and for the cause of the students.
Okay. Mr. Shixwameni, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
Pleasure having you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you very much.
It has been a long time. I hope you invite me next time.
Definitely.
Yeah.